I often say that we are responsible for a spectacular double bottom line. First, when you look at the things that we fund and support, it really is the cultural fabric of who we are as Ontarians. We fund through the Ontario Trillium Foundation nonprofits like Food Cupboards and Legions. We fund our after-school programs. We fund our sports leagues. We fund our art galleries, our public libraries, and our museums. We support our artists, our athletes, and our creators. We support cultural and tourism attractions. We also drive a $75 billion economy in the province of Ontario, which is larger than the GDP of Manitoba and larger than mining, forestry, and agriculture combined. On the 12th of March, the sectors that we represented shuttered overnight, losing at least $20 billion in the Ontario economy and threatening our very being as Ontarians. I say that we've been hit with a triple threat. The first, and the very obvious one, was the public health crisis as a result of COVID-19. Secondly, and as I just reiterated, we've lost about $20 billion in economic activity, with many businesses being shuttered, including Legions like this one. And finally, and this is why I'm here today to talk about resiliency, is the social threat. The fact of the matter remains, we have done a great job as Ontarians asking people to stay inside, stay 2 meters apart, social distance, self-isolate, quarantine. Because of that work, Ontarians, through their Ontario spirit, have helped prevent the spread of COVID-19. But it's also made us reticent to reconnect with our communities, to get out and do what we used to do prior to the pandemic. And that has caused great concern. It's what keeps me up at night, but what gets me up in the morning, thinking about the wonderful people that we want to support. I often say to my colleagues, in 18 months from now, what does your Ontario look like? And I say to them, my Ontario includes libraries. It includes concerts. It includes museums and art galleries. It includes food cupboards run by local volunteers. And it includes supporting our veterans. And that's why I asked the Ontario Trillium Foundation to come to me with a proposal on how we could best support those who make our communities livable. They came back to me with a very good program. So today we're making an $83 million investment to support not-for-profits. We're doing this so that we can support those with mental health issues who have been isolated for the past several months. We're making sure that our religious institutions, that our legions, that our community organizations can have access to PPE that make their costs go higher. We represent in this ministry the largest volunteer sector in the country, and we want to make sure that we continue to recruit people to come back to support our local legions, our local food cupboards, our local children's activities. We want to make sure that they're able to digitize and retool their fundraising capabilities and make sure if they're an art gallery or a museum that they can showcase their content and their exhibitions. And finally, we want to make sure that we can leverage government and the private sector to the best interests of all of our community assets through possible P3s. Now I want to talk about Legions specifically. As somebody who's been very active with this Legion, I recognized early on that our local Legions, 400 of them in the province of Ontario, were threatened. In the absence of federal support through Veterans Affairs Canada, which I do hope I will see soon, our government has invested in a 1-800 hotline to support our veterans. We have commissioned and we will be erecting an Afghan War Memorial at Queen's Park. We have eliminated property taxes as well as school taxes from our Legions. And during this pandemic, all commercial rent evictions have been banned. This announcement today will allow our Ontario Legions to apply for funding to support their members who may have PTSD. This will allow our Legions to buy PPE and have plexiglass erected or thermometers purchased or hand sanitation and other requirements supported. Just as importantly to me is the Poppy campaign. We have to start thinking now about how we're going to support our local Legions in November, when we'll be in the height of our flu season, when we're still expected to social distance. The Poppy campaign this year will look a lot different, and we want to provide support to the Royal Canadian Legions in Ontario so that they can pivot and address this new reality, possibly through digitization. I've also asked the Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Trillium Foundation, Catherine Bambrick, to reach out directly to Ontario Command to see how we can best support our Legions who may not have access to broadband and who may still be shuttered. This support is important right now. It showcases the Ontario spirit that we all have, and just as importantly, it demonstrates the resiliency of the people of this province. And just as I conclude, this $83 million would have normally been spread out over a 3-year period. We have opened this stream immediately because we recognize that the very things that make Barrhaven, Manotick, Westboro, Orleans, Canada, places we call home, are because of these facilities.